Just a few weeks before the March primary election, and the New Hanover County Board of Elections has a new director. The State Board of Elections approved Danae Harris to take over after a unanimous recommendation by the county. Harris comes from Charles City County, Virginia, where she worked as the Director of Elections and General Registrar. Now, the New Hanover County Board of Elections faced strong criticism during the 2024 election cycle over a decision to not count more than 1,700 absentee ballots until after Election Day. Former Board of Elections Director Ray Hunter Havens stepped down last October, citing health reasons.